The basement loomed like a forgotten relic of my childhood, dimly lit and filled with the musty scent of old wood and dust. As I descended the rickety stairs, each creak beneath my feet echoed the unspoken secrets that hung in the air. I was there for a family gathering, but the atmosphere felt charged, thick with unexpressed emotions. My heart raced with curiosity, pulling me toward the shadows where my parents stored years of memories in the form of boxes and old family photographs. It was then that my child, with innocent eyes wide in wonder, stumbled upon the door, a door that had been hidden behind a stack of forgotten furniture. "What's this?" they asked, pointing with a tiny finger, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. I felt a chill run down my spine, a mix of excitement and trepidation. The door was unremarkable at first glance, just a simple wooden slab with peeling paint, but something about it beckoned me closer. I hesitated, my mind racing with possibilities. What lay behind it? Was it a treasure trove of family heirlooms, or perhaps something darker? Around us, my family reacted with awkward laughter, nervous glances exchanged as if they were all part of an unspoken pact to ignore the door's existence. My mother, Linda, stood rigid, her face a mask of discomfort. I could sense her disapproval, the way her lips pressed into a thin line as she shifted her gaze away from the door. "It's just an old storage space," she said, her voice tight, but I could hear the underlying tension. My heart pounded louder, a rhythmic reminder of the risk involved in exploring this new mystery. The air felt electric, charged with the weight of hidden truths. I had always known my family kept secrets, but this door seemed to hold the key to everything I had ever questioned. As I glanced back at my child, their eyes sparkling with innocent intrigue, I felt the pull of curiosity battling against the fear of what might be revealed. The moment hung in the balance, the door a silent sentinel of my family's past. I knew I must decide, should I push forward and uncover what lay behind it, or retreat to the safety of ignorance. My pulse quickened as I reached for the handle, but in that instant, I realized that whatever lay beyond the door would change everything. The stakes were high and my family's unity hung in the balance, but the truth was a siren call I could not resist. The air in the living room was thick with the scent of roasted chicken and the faint sweetness of dessert baking in the oven, but the warmth of the meal did little to ease the chill of tension that hung over our family gathering. I sat at the table, surrounded by my relatives, their laughter echoing like distant thunder, each chuckle masking a layer of unspoken words. My mother, Linda, presided over the dinner with a tight smile, her eyes darting to the door as if it were a wild animal ready to spring. I could feel the weight of her disapproval pressing down on me, a reminder that some things were better left untouched. As plates clattered and voices rose, I caught snippets of conversation that only deepened my unease. "Did you see the new photos from last summer?" my aunt asked, her voice bright, but her gaze flickered to the corner where the door loomed, an uninvited guest at our gathering. I felt my heart race, the familiar ache of curiosity battling against the instinct to retreat into safety. I remembered the last family gathering when whispers of secrets had danced around the table like shadows, but nothing was ever said outright. I shifted in my seat, the wooden chair creaking beneath me, and caught David's eye. He offered a reassuring nod, but I could see the concern etched on his face. The tension was palpable, and beneath the surface, I sensed that everyone was aware of the door's presence, even if they refused to acknowledge it. It felt as if we were all part of a game, each of us trying to navigate the unspoken rules laid down by my mother. "Melissa, dear, why don't you tell us about your new job?" Linda prompted, her tone deceptively sweet, a thin veneer over her desire to redirect the conversation. I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. How could I focus on trivial matters when the truth about our family loomed behind that door? I could feel my frustration bubbling beneath my skin, a silent scream begging to be released. The evening felt like a delicate dance, each step choreographed to maintain the status quo, and I was determined to break the rhythm. The clatter of forks against plates filled the silence as I finally spoke, my voice trembling with resolve. "Actually, I was hoping we could discuss something more significant. What's behind that door?" My question sliced through the air, and for a moment the laughter died. Linda's expression hardened, her eyes narrowing as she shot me a warning glance. It was clear she would not let this conversation unfold easily, and the tension in the room escalated, setting the stage for a confrontation that felt inevitable. I sat back, my heart pounding, the weight of my mother's gaze heavy upon me. I had crossed an invisible line, and I could feel the shift in the atmosphere. The air was electric with unspoken truths, and I knew that whatever lay behind that door was a secret that could unravel us all. My mind raced with possibilities, the stakes rising higher with each passing moment. It was a risk I was willing to take, even if it meant challenging my mother's control over our family's narrative. As I awaited her response, the table felt like a battleground, and I was ready to fight for the truth, no matter the cost. The atmosphere in the living room thickened, simmering with unspoken tensions as I confronted the reality of my family's dynamics. The laughter that had once echoed off the walls now felt hollow, a facade that masked the deeper issues lurking beneath the surface. I could see Linda, my mother, her expression darkened as she clenched her jaw, the tightness in her posture betraying her unease. It was as if the walls themselves were closing in, amplifying the weight of my words. "Can we just talk about the door?" I pressed, my voice steady but laced with urgency. The weight of my question hung in the air, and I could feel the collective breath of my family hold as they braced for the fallout. David shifted in his seat, his eyes darting between me and my mother, a silent plea for peace passing between us. But peace felt like a distant dream, overshadowed by the urgent need for truth. "You don't understand, Melissa," Linda interjected, her tone sharp, cutting through the tension like a knife. "Some things are better left undisturbed. You're risking everything just by asking." The defensiveness in her voice ignited a fire within me, stirring a mix of anger and resolve. I had always known that my family was shrouded in secrets, but now it was clear they were prepared to protect those secrets at any cost. As she spoke, memories flooded my mind, fragments of childhood moments where questions were met with silence, and the occasional raised voice that echoed down the hall, a warning to stay silent. I remembered the times I had held my tongue, ignoring the gut feeling that something was amiss. But now, those memories fueled my determination. I refused to be complicit in this charade any longer. "You think I don't understand?" I challenged, my heart racing as I leaned forward, a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. "I've lived in your shadow long enough, and I won't let fear dictate my life anymore." My words hung in the air, a declaration of my intent to confront the injustices that had been swept under the rug for too long. The silence that followed was deafening, punctuated only by the distant ticking of a clock, each tick a reminder of the time lost to secrets. Linda's face flushed with anger, a storm brewing behind her eyes. "You will regret this," she hissed, her voice low but fierce, a final attempt to intimidate me into submission. I could feel the tension radiating off her, a palpable force that threatened to engulf the room. But I stood firm, my resolve solidifying as the weight of my family's history pressed down on me. The air crackled with unspoken words, and I realized that this confrontation was only the beginning. Each moment of silence felt like a ticking time bomb, poised to explode at any moment as the pressure of hidden truths mounted. I could sense the shift in my family dynamics, the fragile threads of our unity fraying as I prepared to take a stand for the truth, even at the risk of losing everything I held dear. The air in the room thickened as I awaited my mother's response, the tension palpable like a taut string ready to snap. My heart raced, each beat reverberating in my ears as I faced Linda, who sat rigid, her eyes narrowing with a mix of anger and fear. I had crossed a threshold, and now the air crackled with unspoken truths, laced with a sense of impending chaos. "You really want to pursue this?" she asked, her voice a low growl that sent a shiver down my spine. The walls seemed to close in around us, the old family photographs lining the mantel watching this confrontation unfold with silent judgment. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a wave of defiance washing over me. "Yes, I do. What are you hiding behind that door, Mom? It's not just a storage space, is it?" The words slipped from my lips, each one hanging in the air like a challenge, igniting the fire of our family's buried past. Linda's jaw clenched, and for a brief moment, I saw the mask of control slip, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Instead, the silence stretched, thick and suffocating, filled with the weight of secrets that had festered for years. I recalled the countless times I had felt something was amiss, the whispers and sidelong glances exchanged between family members, like a dark cloud hovering over our gatherings. "You need to understand the implications of this, Melissa," she finally exclaimed, her voice rising in pitch, shattering the fragile quiet. "Some truths are meant to remain buried. You risk everything by digging them up." Her words struck me like a slap, raw and painful. I noticed David shifting uncomfortably in his seat, his eyes darting between us, the tension evident on his face. "What do you mean? What could be so terrible that we can't face it together?" I pressed, my voice steady despite the tumult in my chest. I felt like a warrior standing at the precipice, ready to charge into the unknown. My mother's fear only fueled my resolve. I had lived too long under her cloud of secrecy, and it was time to break free. Linda's face paled, the color draining as she seemed to weigh her options, her mind racing. I could see the struggle within her, the protective instinct clashing with the reality that I was no longer the child who would shy away from confrontation. "You think you're ready for this?" she challenged, her tone a mix of desperation and anger. I could sense the impending storm, and I braced myself for the revelation that could shatter our already fragile family bonds. As the seconds ticked by, I felt the weight of generations pressing down on us, the echoes of past decisions reverberating through the room. It was clear that whatever lay behind that door was more than just a secret. It was a reckoning, and I was determined to see it through. The stakes were higher than ever, and I knew that uncovering the truth would alter the course of our family forever. In that moment, I realized the depth of my mother's fear. It wasn't just about the door, it was about everything that had been hidden. The atmosphere thickened, filled with the promise of chaos, and I was ready to confront whatever lay ahead, even if it meant tearing apart the fragile fabric of our family. The remnants of our earlier confrontation lingered in the air, a heavy fog of unresolved tension that seemed to shroud our family in silence. I felt the weight of my mother's glare, still sharp and unforgiving, but beneath it lay a flicker of something unexpected: fear. It was a feeling I had never associated with her before, and it stirred a strange mix of empathy and determination within me. In the days that followed, I resolved to mend the rift that had opened between us, even as my heart raced with doubt. In the dim light of the living room, I invited my mother to sit with me, hoping for a moment of vulnerability. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice softer than it had been during our earlier clash. The air was thick with the scent of fresh coffee, a reminder of the warmth we once shared. Linda hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her sweater, but eventually she nodded, her eyes darting to the floor as if the truth weighed too heavily for her to bear. "I don't want to fight, Mom," I continued, searching for the right words. "But we need to face what's behind that door together. I believe it's the only way to heal. We can't keep pretending everything is okay when it's not." The silence stretched between us, a chasm of unsaid words, and I could feel the tension in my chest tighten. I remembered the countless times I had tiptoed around the truth, but now I was ready to leap. Linda finally lifted her gaze, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, and for a moment I caught a glimpse of the woman who had once held me close, who had whispered promises of safety and love. "You don't understand, Melissa," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Some truths are too painful to bear. I only wanted to protect you." Her admission cracked open a door within me, the understanding that her intentions, while misguided, stemmed from a place of love. "I appreciate that, Mom, but protecting me from the past is hurting us both now," I replied, my voice steady. I reached out, placing my hand over hers, feeling the warmth of her skin against mine. "Let's find a way to face this together. We can't heal if we don't acknowledge the wounds, right?" There was a flicker of hope in her eyes, and I felt the atmosphere shift, a fragile truce beginning to form as we both recognized the need for truth, however painful it might be. As we began to share memories, the laughter and tears flowed more freely, weaving a tapestry of our shared history. I could see the years of guardedness slowly dissolving, revealing the vulnerability beneath. In that moment, I realized that the journey to reconciliation would be long and fraught with challenges, but it was a path I was willing to tread if it meant reclaiming the love that had been buried beneath layers of secrecy. The air hummed with a tentative sense of hope, the kind that flickers in the darkness, urging us to take that first step toward healing. I knew that the planning for our next steps, whatever they might be, would soon require courage and determination. But for now, I felt a warmth spread through me, a glimmer of connection that made the burden of the past feel a little lighter. In that moment, I understood that perhaps, just perhaps, we could forge a new path together, one built on honesty and mutual respect, as the door to our family's truth slowly creaked open. The tension in the room had reached a boiling point, each second stretching into a taut silence that felt electric. I glanced at my mother, her face a mask of defiance, and felt the weight of my family's history pressing down on me. I had pushed the boundaries before, but now I stood at the precipice of a confrontation that could unravel everything. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could hear the distant sound of the clock ticking, each tick a reminder of time slipping away from us. "Enough of this game, Mom," I declared, my voice steady despite the tremor of fear in my chest. The words hung in the air, heavy with the promise of confrontation. I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes, followed by a flash of anger. "You've kept us in the dark for too long. What's behind that door? We deserve to know." Linda's jaw tightened, her lips pressed into a thin line, a fortress against the truths she had long guarded. I could sense the struggle within her, the battle between a mother's instinct to protect and the reality that the truth was no longer hers to control. My heart raced as I prepared for the fallout, each breath a reminder of the stakes involved. David shifted in his seat, a silent plea for calm, but I was past the point of retreat. The time for silence had ended, and I was ready to face whatever lay beyond that door. "You can't keep hiding behind your fears, Mom," I pressed on, my resolve solidifying with each word. The realization hit me like a wave. This was the moment that would change everything. I was no longer the child seeking approval. I was a woman demanding the truth. The consequences of my actions loomed ahead, a dark cloud of uncertainty, but I felt an undeniable sense of determination wash over me. "If you don't tell us, I will open that door myself," I warned, my voice unwavering. The challenge hung in the air, a declaration that I would not be silenced any longer. As the weight of my words settled around us, I could almost hear the door creaking open, a prelude to the revelations that awaited. In that charged moment, I stood ready to confront my family, to face the secrets that had bound us for too long. My heart raced with a mix of fear and exhilaration, knowing that once the truth was set free, there would be no turning back. This was the turning point, the moment I had been preparing for, and I was ready to see it through, no matter the cost. The quiet of the living room felt almost suffocating as I gathered my thoughts, the air thick with the weight of our family's secrets. David sat across from me, his brow furrowed with concern, the tension radiating off him palpable. I could see his mind racing, trying to anticipate the repercussions of what we were about to do. "Are you sure about this, Melissa?" he asked, his voice low, almost a whisper, as if the walls themselves were eavesdropping. I took a deep breath, the faint smell of coffee lingering in the air like a comforting blanket, but it did little to quell the storm brewing inside me. "I have to be. If we don't confront this now, it will only fester, and I won't let that happen." "Not again." I leaned forward, my fingers tapping rhythmically against the table, a physical manifestation of my resolve. The anticipation of unveiling the truth sent a thrill down my spine, yet the fear of the fallout was a heavy anchor weighing me down. "What's our first step then?" David asked, breaking the silence that had settled like a fog. I could see the determination in his eyes, a flicker of the support I had craved. "We need to gather the family together, no more hiding. They have to face the truth, no matter how painful it is. It's the only way to move forward." I felt a rush of adrenaline, my heart pounding with each word, the thought of finally confronting the reality that had been looming over us for so long. As I spoke, flashes of memories danced in my mind, my mother's tense posture, the way her lips pressed into a thin line whenever the subject of the door arose. I could almost hear her voice, sharp with anger, warning me to tread lightly. But I was done being cautious. I needed to push past the fear that had held me hostage, and I could feel the thrill of rebellion coursing through me. David nodded slowly, the corners of his mouth twitching into a supportive smile. "All right, let's do it, but we need to be prepared for their reactions. This could explode in ways we can't predict." His words echoed in my mind, a reminder of the stakes involved. I felt a shiver run down my spine, the reality of our decision settling in, but there was no turning back now. The anticipation of what lay ahead electrified the air, and I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment I would finally reclaim my voice. The atmosphere in the basement felt electric, the air thick with anticipation as I stood before the door that had haunted my thoughts since its discovery. My heart raced, a rapid drumbeat echoing in my ears as I grasped the handle, its coolness contrasting with the heat of my palms. I could almost taste the fear and resolve swirling within me, an intoxicating mix that urged me forward. With a deep breath, I turned the knob and pushed the door open, the creaking sound slicing through the silence like a knife. The dim light spilled into the room, revealing a space cluttered with old furniture, boxes, and forgotten memories. Dust motes danced in the shaft of light, each one a memory waiting to be unearthed. I stepped inside, my pulse quickening at the thought of what lay ahead. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment of unveiling the truth. "Everyone, you need to see this," I called out, my voice steady despite the tremor of excitement coursing through me. David followed closely behind, his presence a reassuring anchor amidst the storm of emotions swirling around us. I could feel the weight of my family's gaze on me, a mix of confusion and dread as they gathered at the doorway, hesitant to step into the unknown. Linda's face was a mask of disbelief as she took in the sight before her. "What have you done, Melissa?" Her words dripped with a mixture of anger and fear, a chilling reminder of the stakes involved. I could see the flicker of panic in her eyes, the realization that the carefully constructed facade was crumbling around her. "It's time to confront what we've kept hidden for too long," I declared, my voice rising above the tension. I could feel adrenaline surging through my veins, each word igniting the fire within me. This was my chance to reclaim my narrative, to take back control from the shadows that had loomed over our family for years. As I began to sift through the boxes, revealing old photographs and letters, I felt the weight of generations pressing down on us. Each item was a piece of the puzzle, a fragment of our family's history that had been buried beneath layers of secrecy. With each revelation, I sensed the atmosphere shift, tension giving way to a dawning realization among my family members. The moment felt pivotal, the air charged with unspoken truths as I laid bare the secrets that had festered for too long. I paused, looking around at their shocked faces, and felt a rush of satisfaction mixed with relief. This was no longer just my battle, it was a family reckoning, and I was finally ready to face the consequences, whatever they may be. The echoes of the past reverberated around us, and in that moment, I understood the liberation that came with unveiling the truth, our truth. The aftermath of our revelations echoed through the house like a haunting melody, each note a reminder of the chaos we had unleashed. I stood in the living room, the air thick with the scent of burnt coffee, remnants of our earlier confrontation lingering like an unwelcome guest. My family sat scattered around the room, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and sorrow as the weight of our truths pressed down on us. I could feel my heart racing, a rhythmic reminder of the emotional tumult swirling within me. As I glanced around, I caught David's eye. He offered a reassuring smile, his presence a steady anchor amidst the storm of emotions. I felt a swell of gratitude. He had been my unwavering support through this tangled web of family secrets. "Are you okay?" he whispered, concern etched on his face. I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at me. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but I was determined to navigate it with honesty. Linda sat across from me, her face pale and drawn, the fierce protector I once knew now reduced to a shadow of her former self. I could tell she was grappling with the fallout of our revelations, the realization that her attempts to shield us from pain had only deepened the fissures within our family. "I'm sorry, Melissa," she finally murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The sincerity in her tone caught me off guard, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. "I know you were trying to protect me, Mom," I replied, my voice steady but softening. "But we need to rebuild from here together, no more secrets." I could see the tension in her shoulders ease slightly, the weight of her guilt beginning to lift. The room, once charged with anger and fear, began to transform into a space for healing. As we sat together, the silence between us shifted from one of discomfort to one of shared understanding. I felt the fragile threads of our family connections begin to weave together again, slowly but surely. It was clear that the road to reconciliation would be long, but for the first time, I sensed a willingness from my mother to embark on that journey. In that moment, I realized that the truth, while painful, was also a powerful catalyst for change. The confrontation had stripped away the layers of pretense, revealing the raw, unvarnished reality of our lives. I was ready to embrace the future, to forge a new path built on trust and honesty. The echoes of our past would always linger, but I was finally prepared to face them head-on, knowing that our family's story was far from over. In the aftermath of our revelations, the air in the house felt lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from our shoulders. I sat in the living room, the sun streaming through the windows, casting warm rays that illuminated the once shadowed corners filled with memories. The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of baked goods, a reminder that life continued beyond the chaos we had just faced. My family was scattered around the room, their expressions a blend of relief and uncertainty, but there was an underlying current of hope that had not been there before. Linda, my mother, looked different. Her posture was less rigid, her eyes no longer clouded with fear. She had agreed to confront our past, and I could see the flicker of determination in her gaze as she spoke softly. "I never wanted to hurt you, Melissa. I just wanted to protect us all." I nodded, feeling the sincerity of her words wash over me. It was a small step, but it felt monumental, and I realized that healing would be a process, one that required patience and understanding. As I glanced at David, I felt immense gratitude for his unwavering support. He had been my rock, a steady presence through the storm. "We're going to be okay, right?" I asked him, my voice barely above a whisper. He smiled, a reassuring nod signaling his belief in our ability to mend what had been fractured. In that moment, I understood that truth, while painful, could also be a bridge to healing. I was determined to inspire others to face their own truths, to challenge the shadows that lingered in their lives. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was just the beginning, and I was ready to embrace the journey ahead. So, as I reflect on our story, I invite you to join me in this